To present Austin Faith Dialogue, brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries. In the weeks ahead, you will see these and other programs by various denominations.
Austin Faith Dialogue, a public affairs series at the crossroads of religion and life. Austin Faith Dialogue highlights the interaction of the religious community with the social and cultural issues in the area in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTBC TV. Join us now for this week's edition of Austin Faith Dialogue.
Caritas, the Latin word for charity and love. Caritas, the name of a vital service which has been rendered by the religious community in Austin for more than 25 years. Hello, I'm Richard Thompson, pastor of Central Presbyterian Church, and your host for this edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. And today we'll be updated on the services of Caritas, particularly as its social outreach is being extended and redefined. Joining us are Ron Guggenheim, the Executive Director of Caritas, Katrina Lyons, a staff member of the service, and the Reverend Jim Evans, the clergy representative on the staff. We welcome you all to the show today. And Ron, I think, as the director of the program, it might be well for you to update our viewing audience about when Caritas came into the community and a bit of its history.
Caritas came into the community about 26 or 27 years ago and had a rather remarkable beginning. Monsignor Richard McCabe was at that time a very young clergyman in the Diocese of Austin, and he secured a grant from his home parish of just a few $100s a month for 2 years running. And they tasked him with getting that the agency started on that funding, and he did. He succeeded in doing so, but he quickly grew it into an ecumenical organization. And that's what it is today, a very strong and a very strongly focused church-sponsored charity providing social services for the needs of Austin.
Was Salvation Army in town at that time, too?
I'm not aware that it was, but I'm sure that it had some function at that time.
I'm just wondering about what, Caritas brings to the community is distinct, for instance, from the Salvation Army.
Well, I think that the services that are provided at Caritas are perhaps able to be a little bit more generally applied to the needs of people than the Army. The Army has some very strict regulations, and they're very closely followed. The Association of Churches that sponsors Caritas is able to liberalize on that a little bit and to be perhaps a little bit more able to do good and to do work in behalf of the needy when that need arises.
In other words, you might find Caritas ministering more to families, as an example?
That's correct.
And not just to people who are needing a place for food and overnight accommodations and that sort of thing.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. We interface with the Salvation Army quite well, but at the same time they make numerous referrals to us for people that are not quite appropriate for their service.
All right. Let's talk about some of the social services. I know that this is your particular area, Katrina, and what kinds of outreach do you provide?
We have people coming to us. I think in the last year the demography has changed a lot. Most of the people that we're seeing now are families, and we're able to offer them food, clothing, on occasion prescriptions. We have people coming from all walks of life, and we try to do what we can for each person that comes to our door.
Okay. And what about the, for instance, you've mentioned the food, clothing, utilities, things like that, but I mean, you're not providing the whole of meeting those needs. Is it just kind of an emergency basis that you respond to?
We are an emergency intervention agency, as far as our social services. We work very closely with a lot of other agencies in town. In fact, what happens is that when a person comes to us, particularly for rental assistance or utility assistance, we end up doing a patchwork quilting in the city. A client may go to Travis County Department of Human Services, and then they will come to us for additional help. And there are other agencies that also assist.
So you network with these
We
other...
network very closely with the agencies in town, and they with us, of course.
Okay. Let's look at it from the church standpoint. Jim, as a clergy member of that staff, what's the connection to the religious community?
Well, we say at Caritas that we are the church's commitment to the needy. And over 50 congregations in the greater Austin area so far have responded to the assistance of the people who come to Caritas. Approximately 12 denominations are represented, although we have Roman Catholic beginnings, and they have certainly been a major contributor to all of the success of Caritas. The churches are heavily involved, and they want to be more involved. Every time that need arises, they respond. We're very proud of our association and very thankful to all the churches in this greater Austin area.
So the churches are providing you primarily with financial support? Is that where it comes in?
They do provide financial support, and they provide food. They have a lot of canned food drives. We get quite a bit of food from the food bank, and they certainly perform a major function for us. We go there once a week. Many of the churches, for example, this last week, several of the local churches have begun food drives, scattered them so that the food will arrive as we can use it. We store what we have in surplus at the time, but I want to emphasize that there are many, many times when our pantry goes bare. We get down to nothing but pasta and soap sometimes, and we send out an appeal, and the churches respond quickly. And the volunteers, we get many volunteers from the churches around town.
To help with your food program or your social services in some other way?
That's correct. They come and they do many things for us. They help serve the lunches. Our Loaves and Fishes program, for example, relies heavily on the volunteers from the local churches to help prepare and serve and clean up.
Loaves and Fishes is the noon program, the luncheon program.
That's correct.
It operates out of Caritas. I understand the Salvation Army has an evening program of,
Yes.
of dinner. And what about you, the breakfast and the weekends, the other? Is there any reason that anyone should go hungry in Austin, I guess is one way of looking at it?
There is no reason that anyone should go hungry in Austin. There's enough places in town that offer food or offer meals that no one needs to go hungry. And certainly if anybody needs to find out where they can come get the food or where they can get a meal, they can always call us, and we would be able to refer them.
All right. But you know, one of the things that occurs to me is that if it's true that no individual has to starve in this city, that's a long way from the opportunities to, you know, have a stable future and a hopeful future. Is Caritas doing anything to help people prepare themselves, say job-wise or otherwise, for longer range life? Or is it just completely emergency, Ron? I'd really be interested in that.
We placed a strong emphasis on trying to help people out of their dependency, trying to give them an opportunity to become self-sufficient.
And how do you do that?
We've secured a grant that we've had a lot of success with from the City of Austin. It's our Homeless Employment Grant. The City of Austin specifies that large amounts of that money will go to single-parent head of household families, and that money will be spent to provide child care so that the parent can work, retraining if the parent needs that in order to obtain a job, clothing, tools, even some rent subsidy for a few months to get the parent up on his or her feet so that in due time they can begin to assume those full responsibilities for themselves.
Now, this is a new program that's coming online.
We've had it online for a couple of years now.
Oh, you have?
And it's been very successful.
Okay.
We are combining that program with our Loaves and Fishes service in the very near future, and that will be the new aspect of that program.
So you've seen some results already of people who've become self-sufficient and been helped out of dependency?
We've been able to see that given the right opportunities and making the right connections with people at the right time, catching them at a good point of motivation and giving them the kind of encouragement and assistance that they need, that those people can and do achieve their self-sufficiency and maintain jobs and employment and go on to lead their lives.
Okay, well, I think that's encouraging, is that you've not just been doing a Band-Aid type program, but you have sought to help people stand on their own feet and be equipped for the future.
It's a program that we're very happy with, very, very proud to have.
Let's just take a fix for a moment. For those who are maybe new to the community or not otherwise heard about Caritas, where is this located? If they want to come see you, Jim, where would they come?
They would come to 7th and Trinity, 308 East 7th Street, to be precise. We're on the corner next to St. David's Episcopal Church.
All right. And I understand that you have a new location that's going to be in effect by mid-year. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, we've expanded our program. We hope to move our loaves and fishes by approximately July 1 to 505 East 7th Street. That's a block and a half from our permanent headquarters at 7th and Trinity. At that time, we'll have additional social services available in that building. We hope to have more of a religious emphasis out of that particular place as far as Caritas presence goes. We'll have a good, adequate feeding program there. We'll have classrooms where we can teach English as a second language and amnesty program in conjunction with Austin Community College.
So you're opening up a new location just because you need the room?
If we're going to provide the services that are needed in the city, we definitely need the extra room. That's correct. And I believe that the city will see the benefits of it right away. I think that the people who are now scattered on 1st and 2nd Street, for example, will find a focus on 7th Street, not a place where they can hang out or where they can come to loiter, quite the opposite. When they come into us, they're going to get a program that we will work with them one-on-one. We want to look them in the eye and get them back into the mainstream of society. We want them off the streets. Our job is to work ourselves right out of a job. Although, as our Lord said, the poor we have always with us.
Well, I think that that sometimes has been used as an excuse by people who are better off to rationalize why people are the way they are to just absolve themselves of responsibility. And I know that in my preaching I've had occasion to come back to that because I hear it quite a bit. And it seems to me it was not just a resignation to, well, you know, you don't even try. But the fact that it has been that way, and it was not meant to be that it always has to be that way. I can get a little theological interchange with you on that.
No, absolutely. I think that we're charged to do all that we can. Mother Teresa said, I did not pick up 42,000 people from the streets, I picked up one. And so long as we keep the hand out to help that other person, then we're doing our job. Most of the people who are working for wages in this city and every other city in this country are 2 to 4 weeks away from what we would call homeless. Homeless is not a physical state of being. It can be a mental state of being. It's a state of mind at times because of the hopelessness that can come with homelessness.
I guess maybe what we ought to also visualize is someone comes into, is it 505 East 7th Street?
That's correct, Caritas 505.
And you'll be offering services there, Katrina, when that opens up?
I think eventually. At this time, we'll still be headquartered at 308 East 7th Street. Yeah. And
tell me, in terms of what you're currently doing, if somebody comes to you and says, I've got $300 in my utilities to pay, or they're going to turn them off. Can you pay $300 if that person were in that desperate need?
I wish.
Huh?
I wish we could. No, we're not able to. We have a certain amount of money that we can usually spend on each client. It also, each case is so different that each case should be determined as the client comes in and presents their need.
So you wouldn't necessarily give them the same amount?
We would not necessarily give them the same amount. We may not even give them anything because there may be other underlying causes for that need that would need to be addressed before we can even attempt to get rid of that utility bill. We were speaking earlier, I think, about the types of people that come to Caritas, and we do definitely try to get people to a self-sufficient state, even if we only see them the one time. A lot of people that we do see are only experiencing a one-time emergency. And so the Band-Aid that we give them, that will set them on their way again, and we hope we will never see them again. But so many of the people that we're seeing have multiple needs that we end up addressing many of these areas and perhaps referring them to other agencies as well.
Would there be a limit as to how much you could help any given individual? Is it just in your budget, do you say that this is as much as we can do?
What we do is out of the discretionary funds that we receive from from our churches and individual donors, and the amount of money that is provided to us by the city and the county for designated areas of need, we try to apportion that money in measured amounts so that we will have enough money to stay active in the field, so to speak, throughout the year on a day-to-day basis. What I would like to do is to focus on to something that Katrina said that I think is very important here, and that is that even though an individual may come in with a very large financial need or with a multiplicity of problems, that many of those problems get addressed to the point of solution through many helping hands. The grant money that we might have in the case that you mentioned may be $50 to $75, depending upon how well the donations have come through and how well off we are at that particular time. The debt is $300. By the time we get through, we've contacted 2 or 3 churches or an individual who has said he or she would like to help, and through many helping hands, that debt gets resolved. But in the process of doing that, as Katrina has also said, we may have discovered an underlying cause to this thing that really needs to be resolved as well as the money, or even in lieu of the money problem. And in that way, that whole issue gets resolved.
Well, let's say there are underlying problems. Would you offer counseling in terms of coming to terms with your emotional hang-ups or with your need for learning how to deal with family problems otherwise? Do you offer counseling?
Not on an ongoing and long-term basis. I think at the moment we offer on-the-spot counseling, but I think Katrina has done an excellent job in identifying a network of services that she can refer people to who might need some financial planning advice and work along those lines, and for many other areas.
What about Hobo as another downtown helping organization? How does that fit in the constellation of services?
Well, we work well with Hobo, and we work closely with them.
And what do they offer?
They originally got into the business with transitional housing. They wanted to provide a way that the people could have a shelter, an adequate shelter. And their services have expanded. I don't see that you can ever overfill a need in this area at this time. And there may be some services that are duplicated in this city, but that's all right. We can't over-duplicate. And I think that all of us are trying to work together. I think we have a wonderful bunch of agencies in this city. Hobo is a very good example. Their people contact us, we contact them, we refer people back and forth. They have a big storage area. We may pop in with somebody who needs to store something. We'll deliver it over in one of our cars, help them put things in there. They need some help. All of a sudden, we see somebody at our door with a note from Hobo saying, can you help this person out? Here's the specific need we've identified.
Okay, so you work with Hobo, you work with Salvation Army.
Yes.
You work with the Baptist Chapel.
That's right.
And then you mentioned working with the churches. Let's just focus for a moment on the religious community. Besides the financial support, you mentioned the volunteers. Is there anything else the churches could or should be doing that could be on a team?
If they're members of churches that know of jobs, please let us know, because that is usually the underlying cause for somebody coming through our doors in the first place. And there's a real need for that, for employment. Of course, food drives are imperative.
But the job would be hitting at the deeper level of providing an ongoing means of support.
Absolutely.
Right.
You give a man a fish and you fed him for one meal. You teach a man to fish and you have fed him for a lifetime. This old axiom still holds true today.
All right. What's the number, by the way, of Caritas? People want to call and respond at this very minute. Where would they call?
472-4135. And keep trying.
Yeah.
We have a lot of lines, but they are often busy.
Okay. I need to come to one particular issue. I know, Ron, you've been on the show before, and I can remember our not having at that time the understanding of how close we are to the opening of the Civic Center. That's going to be coming online in the middle of 1992. The Capitol renovation is going to be done about the same time. So from the middle of the city to the south eastern side, there's Caritas, Salvation Army is on that axis. Have you found that there's been some fear that with the visitors coming in with the convention center that having the needy downtown in such a visible way is going to present a problem?
Well, I think that potentially it certainly has the capability of being a problem. I think it depends upon how the agencies do their work, how they function. It makes a big difference. There's really no perfect solution to that problem. The City Planning Commission advises that the services would be better focused into a more confined area of the downtown, and thus free up the other areas from from the passage of people in need. In addition to that, they advised that it would be easier on the people who are homeless and in need to find those services in a smaller area than to be scattered all over town. So it was because of that Caritas made its move in conjunction, frankly, with a specific recommendation of the Planning Commission to move its services directly across the street and behind, I guess I should say, the Salvation Army home, but within very close proximity to to its own home base. And that feeding line, or the loaves and fishes feeding, was seen as an opportunity then to move that and to prevent that kind of migration 2 and 3 times a day of people all over town. What we are trying to do is to articulate a service that is specific to needs, that gives people a goal or an objective to accomplish, and thereby discourages some of the just hanging out that you see that really tends to bother people, and which produces the panhandling and the accosting and that sort of thing when people become restless. We will have room inside to accommodate those looking for our services, and that's where we want them, out of the weather.
So there will be no reason to be outside?
That's correct. That's correct.
All right. All right. What about I think another one of the issues is the extent to which Hobo is on the other side of Congress, so that that's separated from this concentration of social services. Is there any thought that there would ever be any further consolidation?
I've been in contact with Hobo's leadership, and they've spoken to the feasibility of closer collaboration in the production of, and the providing rather, of what they call basic services to the homeless. We're working on that concept. At the same time, I believe Hobo is in the process of trying to get to a new location itself. And I think that until those issues are resolved, we won't know quite exactly what each one can and will do in conjunction with the other. But certainly the will is there to do it.
One of the things that's most visible in terms of the human need in town is if you're driving on 1st Street in the morning along the frontage road by I-35, you see the day laborers trying to flag people down and get some kind of work. Will you be offering any services for the day laborers in this either present or expanded program? Katrina?
Well, 505 will act as a go-between for the Salvation Army, which will be having the employment services. So we will be doing everything to augment that particular service at the Salvation Army.
So the Salvation Army is going to take on the day laborer issue.
Right.
More than they have in the past.
That's correct.
Yes, they just received funding of a certain amount from the City of Austin on an experimental basis to try and increase that program, and we hope to help them in any way that we can. We'll provide bulletin board service, telephone service. We'll provide our form of counseling, whatever we can. Our services are always available to them. And we hope it'll be an additional focal point, because we feel that this is one of the main things they need. If they only have one place to go, and the TEC, of course, they do a fine job. They're working at this also. But in our part of town, this is where the people have traditionally come to look for the day labor type employment, which is certainly not a solution. It's another Band-Aid in this long, painful operation of life.
You know, one of the things that occurs to me is we move toward the convention center and we all are working for the revitalization of the downtown.
Yes.
And as a downtown clergyman, for instance, we'll be connected with you on this with the cooking going on for that Loaves and Fishes will be in the kitchen.
We're
at
very
Central
grateful for that, Richard. We looking forward to using the kitchen at Central Presbyterian Church.
We're looking forward to having you, because I think that's a way that we can make a contribution. But I can't help but have the feeling that instead of seeing this as so much of a problem as an opportunity, on the west side of Chicago, for instance, there is this medical center. About 1 out of every 5 doctors is trained in Chicago, and a good proportion of those there. And they have a healing center for physical kinds of things. And I'm just wondering if we couldn't envision Austin by the middle of the 21st century as being a healing center in terms of social services. And instead of trying to turn our eyes from this or try to deny this, that we take some new steps towards saying this is the opportunity for us to really be Austin in the fullest sense.
It's a marvelous vision.
And I would hope that maybe that's what, as we continue to network together, that's what could arise.
I can just address that, what you've just spoken about, because I think that's what so many of the agencies want to do, and Caritas is now hosting interagency meetings, and those are exactly the expressed wishes of all of us.
I would express my gratitude to you for bringing that up, because I think this is what we're all seeking to do, is to work together in a creative way. And I'd like to thank each of you for being here today, and each of you for looking in on our program. And may Caritas be action and love for us all as we move into the future. And I'm Richard Thompson, thanking you for watching. Peace be with you. For more information, call Austin Metropolitan Ministries at 472-7627.